Shana Tova, family. I want to talk about what it is that brings us all together. I was hoping to record this talk at the Kotel tonight, but I didn't plan things properly. We left a bit later than we thought, and when we got there, there were about 150,000 other people there for the last night of Slichot. We planned to be there earlier. What we learned from that is that when you make plans, sometimes they need to change, otherwise there's no point making plans at all, because nothing will ever be the way you want it to be. What I wanted to talk about there was to reflect in the concept of plans that don't go according to plan. That you want to do something in a certain way, it's never the way it actually works out. The Talmud says all of these amazing levels of teshuvah, how teshuvah brings you closer. And it's wonderful when you think of all these great saintly people who do the tiniest thing wrong and then feel so guilty about it because they're such special people and make up for it, and even better than they ever used to be. But it says in the Talmud, in Gemara Yoma, it says, Shuvah is so great that it brings you closer than you ever would have been without Shuvah. And it brings a pasuk that implies this, which leaves this amazing idea that you somehow got closer to God by having done something wrong and then having genuinely regretted it and genuinely made up for it than you would have been if you'd have never done anything wrong at all. And there's two separate lessons from that. One is to understand just how special it is to go through tshuva, because imagine if you didn't have to go through it. Tshuva meaning to actually regret things you shouldn't have done, and to go to people who you've done the wrong thing to and to open up and apologize, and then to go to God and open up and apologize. But the other thing it points out is how to view the story of your life. Because the story of all of our lives, from a certain perspective, is missed opportunities. Every single one of us has something I could have done that I could have done better. Everything. And from that perspective, you're all failures. And from that perspective, what's the purpose of life? What makes it even worse is that when you're very young, okay, you're a bit of a failure, but big deal, you've got many more years to get it right. And so many young people, as they get older, get depressed because they don't understand how they're going to make it right. Teshuvah tells us that making it right is not about thinking about all the bad things you did and seeing how lousy your life is. Rather, it's about saying, look, after all the things I did, be it that I failed in them simply because I tried really hard and I wasn't good enough, or be it that I failed in them because at a certain point I got too selfish or too greedy or too lazy and I really did something bad. But instead of looking at that as a failure, look at that as a success. Because any time you look back at something and see how you would never do that again, you've grown much more than if you actually made something and built something. And so when I look at the evening I was meant to have tonight and how I wanted to talk about this from the Kotel with my children and actually have that kind of background, and that it didn't turn out the way it needed to be. And I learned some things from this, but I also, one of the most important things I learned from it is life is not a perfect set of plans, because then you're a failure. But rather you have teshuvah, which teaches us the concept that what life is about taking what you've done and working out what was good with it and what was not good with it, avoiding that again. That's moving on with life. And it's not even necessarily about repeating the experience. You're not going to do it again. I mean, it's a one-off thing you did. But rather, being a better person because of it. And that, rather than meaning that as we get older, we simply are people who are less useful because we have that many less years to do anything useful, we are more useful because if we are involved with this kind of positivity, the longer we're alive and the more we live, the more we actually get in contact with our real godly self, because we're learning from our experiences and we're seeing all the things we would never do again. So I want to wish a Shana Tova and a lovely year, right, and an appropriate, meaningful Yom Kippur for all of my friends and family here from Israel.